Thank you for inviting me to the event. It's been great so far. So I found the previous presentation very interesting. So I hope you'll find the next 20 minutes as interesting as well. So let's start. So I'm here to talk about how we prevent fraud in B2B online transactions. And it's quite a challenge, mainly because fraud has become such an advanced and sophisticated industry because, believe it or not, there's some very professional people working in it. It's also very challenging because everything is moving digitally, right? So most transactions are now happening online, and speed is of the essence, right? So you have to spot things very quickly. So it's quite a big challenge. So, but before I go into how we do it, I think I need to do my usual sales pitch for what we do. So we were born in 2021 with the purpose to fix all the inefficiencies in online business transactions. I'm sure all of us here are consumers. We're buying things online with 2 clicks. Well, the same is not happening with business transactions, unfortunately. And one of the key reasons is fraud as well. So what's the kind of, why is that a bad thing? So not being able to safely take payments from businesses online is holding a lot of businesses back, especially small to medium enterprises. So a report from the European Commission in 2018 estimates that $20 billion is held in unpaid invoices to businesses, and that 6.5 million jobs are lost every year because of that. So we came in the market to solve this. So to explain a bit more what we do, we're basically Klarna for businesses. So when businesses go online to buy anything, even robots, we do have a merchant that sells robots, they can put the robot in their basket and they can check out in a second. As easy as B2C. That's what we do. And our vision is to become the largest B2B payment method by 2026, which it's pretty soon. So we should probably change the date. No, we're doing quite well. So we're currently operating in Norway, the Netherlands, Sweden, UK, and just setting foot to the US as well. Cool. So yeah, we're doing quite well. We're backed by Sequoia, one of the biggest, if not the biggest VC in the world, and lots of other cool investors. And our merchants love us. So I put some quotes, the real quotes. Won't repeat, but yeah, it's going well. And I think big part of our success is our ability to actually control fraud losses and credit losses, but fraud losses mainly. So a few more words why preventing fraud in B2B is a lot more challenging. First of all, the ticket size is much bigger. So you're not dealing with the price of a pair of jeans. As I mentioned, we sell robots that are worth sometimes £500,000, big industrial robots. We have merchants that sell all sorts of stuff. I think on average, the B2B transaction is 7 times higher than the B2C, but I think it's a very rightly skewed distribution. The second biggest challenge is that when it comes to B2C transactions, you have one-to-one relation between the person who is putting the purchase and the person you have to verify. Easy, right? When it comes to B2B, if someone is buying on behalf of Amazon and we had Amazon purchasing on the platform, it can be one of their, I don't know how many thousands employees they have that is trying to place that purchase. So it's a lot more challenging to get comfortable that that person indeed represents Amazon. And finally, again, speed is of the essence. If you want to offer the B2C experience, you have to do it in 2 seconds. And you will say, well, it's the same. Well, it's the same, but because of the 2 things above, it's a lot more challenging. So you can't ask any questions if you're going to do it in 2 seconds, right? Cool. So before I show how we do it, I'll show our results. So we had 0% third-party fraud on the platform in 2024. which means no one who is trying to impersonate a business is able to get through. We had 0.1% first-party fraud. First-party fraud is when the person owns the business, so they can pass any verification that you dictate. And that's much harder to spot because what you need to assess there is intent, that the person is intending to pay. And we have prevented 12 million euros of fraud just this year. So you're all sitting there saying, okay, blah, blah, blah. How do you do it? Yeah, how do we do it? Obviously, I cannot disclose how we do it because it will be like building a castle and then to prevent enemies from coming in and then going out and sharing leaflets of the map. But I think aside from the decision science logic that sits behind these models, which of course plays a fundamental role in our ability to control losses, I think the tooling and infrastructure and the strategy behind how you do that is equally important. And I really believe that, and that's why I'm focusing my presentation mainly on that. So one key component of our strategy is hierarchical ML models. Why is this important? Well, I think precision comes through modular specialization, right? And fraud is a very multifaceted problem. So having one model to solve it is not, it's guaranteed that it's not going to reach the same level of accuracy as if you have multiple models that are specialized in identifying certain particular attributes of a fraud attack. So instead of building one big model, we build a whole library of individual capabilities that assess different things. And then the second most important aspect about this modular specialization is how do you put these models together? We all know, I'm sure all data scientists in the audience know that ensemble models perform much better than single models, where this is a strategy about how you put the output of all these models together in a clever way that you can increase further the accuracy by the time you make a final decision. So I have a few examples here of what we do. So for example, we have a deep neural network that tries to understand the propensity of fraud from the basket of items that the buyer is trying to purchase relative to their business. So for example, if you have a 10-employee business and they're trying to purchase 100 laptops, it will score quite high on propensity of fraud. We also, this is dynamically updating. So if, for example, we are working with the biggest merchant in Sweden who sells electronics, so the moment the iPhone 15 came out, we didn't have any fraud cases on iPhone 15 because it wasn't a product until yesterday. The moment a fraud is identified with an iPhone 15 on the basket, then the iPhone 15 item becomes a higher propensity for fraud item. So not only, it's dynamically updated to always keep up to date with the items that fraudsters find more appealing in the merchants that we work with. So let's say you have that model, then we have another model that assesses the behavior of a buyer on the platform. So we might have seen the same buyer coming to purchase other items from different merchants. So we built a model to understand the risk of fraud coming purely from the behavior identified on the platform. Then you can put these models together and a few other to build what we call a behavioral model score. So you put everything together. What are you buying? What do we know about you? And a lot of other attributes to then define what's the behavior score on this particular transaction. If we look further down, we also have a director trustworthiness score. So you just set up a business, you're trying to purchase. What do we know about you? What happened to your previous businesses? Are there any previous businesses? Did they go bankrupt? Did they go bankrupt very quickly after you set them up? So a lot of information on your background defines how much we can trust you as a director. And then what else I have there? Then we build a business online presence score. So we can look at a business, we can assess their website, we use LLMs for that particular model, where we can assess what's the probability that this website is fake? Where did they take their pictures from? When was the last time they updated it? How many, the usual backlinks, all this stuff. How many followers you have on Facebook? We work with SMEs. I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation that we're here mostly to help SMEs. So we have to make sure that our models are not biased against smaller businesses. So we look at their Facebook page. They might not have a website because they're a small coffee shop in Shoreditch. So we look at their Facebook page, when it was the last time they posted, how many followers, how much can we trust that Facebook page, etc., etc. And then we aggregate the information from these models, sometimes in a nested way, to then build a business trust score. How much do we trust this business? And finally, putting everything together, we have a fraud score, which makes the final decision. So, lots of different models working together, but the important bit here is that each one is very specialized for that question that it needs to answer. And putting all the answers together, you can be confident about your final one. The second element in our strategy that helps us prevent fraud as effectively as we do is the fact that we have invested in building our own MLOps ecosystem within the business. Because I truly believe that mastery needs machinery. You might have a great bunch of data scientists, but if they work each one on their local machine, it's not going to help us become the biggest B2B player by 2026. So the motivation behind building it in-house was that we had the vision to become global from day one. So how do you get data scientists residing in different countries to collaborate effectively? How do you leverage on everyone's knowledge to build the next model very quickly as well, without having to reinvent the wheel? So that was part of the motivation. But there is a huge number of other advantages that come with it. For example, we have 0 days deployment to production. The moment the model is ready, it can be deployed within an hour. This is because of the tooling and the infrastructure that we built that allows for automated deployment, automate monitoring of the models, automated model building pipelines, etc., etc. So as you can see from my kind of, not graph, but boxes on the right-hand side, so we have a data platform which is made up of all the data sourced in the business, either that we buy, that we engineer, that is AI generated, or just our own data on the platform. Then we have our MLOps ecosystem, which has a playground for data scientists. We have a feature store, very important. Every feature that is designed in the business for any type of model is maintained, documented, and stored in the feature store. So any data scientist who needs to build a new model can leverage on the intelligence and creativity of every other data scientist that has worked in the business. And we have a model deployment service, a model registry, and a performance monitoring service. And of course, we have our intelligent guys, machine learning engineers, and data scientists contributing to this platform. And the final element, I think, that of our success is speed. We say that we operate in a two-speed world. It's very key, fraud is ever evolving. So you cannot sit back and say, we had fraud for 0% fraud for 3 months. You're going to get attacked and they're going to get through. It's a matter of time. So the point is, when they get through, how quickly can you learn and adapt and close the gap so that you don't lose a lot of money? And this is a key element in everything we do. So basically, when we push out models, the moment we got a fraud case that went through, the model is retrained, it learns from it, it understands what is missing, and then we go out again and again and again. So it's not 0% or 0.1% because we nailed the strategy. It's because it keeps being dynamically updated with everything that we learn every day. And I think I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions for Marina? Straight away, I'm in. I've spotted it.
Thank you for the talk. And you mentioned about the fraud prevention rates, etc. Those are great numbers. Have you ever think about the frictions you bring to the customers by introducing false positives, that you are blocking too many transactions?
That's a great question. So unfortunately, we can't block too many transactions because when we partner with merchants, and I think this is the toughest product I've ever worked on. I worked in fintech all my life in very consumer and business products, but this is the toughest because when you partner with a merchant, the first thing they're going to ask you, how many of our buyers are you going to approve? And believe it or not, sometimes we have to put it in the contract that we guarantee 80% acceptance rate or above. So I can't decline a lot. But what we do in third-party fraud, we don't decline anyone. So what happens if I trust you, I will ask you to verify with your email. It's very frictionless, right? Like just click we all do email verification in a lot of products. However, if I don't trust you, I'm going to ask the legal rep of the business to do an ID verification. And in Norway and Sweden that we operate, it's a very frictionless product as well. They call it Bank ID, and VIPS is like countrywide and very easy to use. So what happens with third-party fraud? If you're impersonating, you won't be able to verify. So we don't decline them, but they can't continue. So we don't decline on third-party fraud. On first-party fraud, we do, but the models have to be of a very high accuracy because exactly we can't drop the acceptance rate. If it goes below 80%, the merchants will not love us as they do. So yeah, we have to control for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? There we go, sir. Thank you. Could you pass this one back?
Thank you for your talk. You told us about fraud scoring. And what about credit scoring? Because fraud scoring is about intentions not to return, and credit scoring is about something else.
So we do that as well. I just focus the presentation on fraud, but we do have a credit funnel as well that operates within the risk engine. So the credit funnel provides an approval based on the credit worthiness and a credit limit or a credit line for the buyer. So we do that as well. But it's a much easier game in B2B than fraud, because most businesses have every intention to pay if they're not fraudulent. It's only, so it's much easier.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Are we good? There we go. There's two up here. I'll come to the chap in the pink first.
Hi, hello. In your historical behavioral model, do you have issues because you're only training the model on transactions based on your platform solely? And if so, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of only a partial view of someone's activity. If we focus on their kind of line purchases. But it is effective because, especially if you're a fraudster, you're gonna try and act very quickly, right? Especially first-party fraud, and then you're gonna bankrupt the business within a month before anyone. So I think the velocity at which you're trying to transact, and etc., is quite predictive. So yeah, it is a weakness, but it's still very accurate to just focus on your internal data. Now, as we grow the merchant base on our platform, we can start observing buyers that purchase through different merchants. So hopefully when we're global and the biggest B2B payment method, we will have a huge coverage on that as well.
Amazing, amazing. We'll take one more question. So, two more questions.
Okay, cool.
One more question.
Me? Yeah.
Sorry, I know that. Hello, thank you for the talk. You mentioned you train multiple models that all together take a decision. Have you noticed that since fraudster behavior is very dynamic, if a specific case of one of those models needs often retraining, that it's very sensitive to this dynamic behavior?
Yes, 100%. And I think this is another key advantage of going with this modular approach. Because imagine if you have one model, and suddenly some of the attributes become less powerful, then your whole strategy suffers, right? But having like 20 or whatever, 60 models running in parallel and one degrades is not very likely that it will impact the performance to, a lot by the time you have the time to adapt. But you're right, there is models that need to be more dynamically trained than others. For example, the basket one, it's one of those. Just because new products come into the market or we are integrating with new merchants that have different products, so we keep retraining it very often. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Marina. Can we have a round of applause, please?
Thank you.